Pei Jingxing fell into the water. Only I among those present am a good swimmer. The servants, panicking and scattering, rushed me to save him. Miss Shen-san, hurry and save His Highness the Savior. In a past life, I saved him for his gratitude to the life-saving grace. The Duke of Yongning proposed marriage to Pei Jingxing the next day after marriage. He treated me with courtesy at all times. 10 years later, he died in battle on the front. The last will explicitly forbids burial with me, only leaving behind a silver hairpin for him to lie in eternal sleep. That hairpin, I recognize it. It belongs to my concubine half-sister. On the day I got married, she hanged herself in the room, so it turns out he hated me so much that even in death he would not share a tomb with me. A re-beginning in another life. I stopped in my tracks. Let the task of saving people be handled by the person he admires. Seeing that I was about to approach the lake, I pulled back my steps and stood by the willow tree. Pei Jingxing was shouting for help in the middle of the lake. He looked at me, hoping I would save him. The servant was extremely anxious. Miss Shen-san, I beg you to save His Highness the Crown Prince. Your swimming skills are famously good in the capital. I averted my gaze, my expression anxious, and let out a helpless sigh. You must be remembering wrong. It isn't me with good water affinity, but my lawful elder sister, she said. The servants suddenly understood, exchanging glances. Seeing Wanqing on the stage, anxiously watching, I was overjoyed and pointed to the maiden in the lotus-pink brocade skirt, as beautiful as a flower, in the pavilion. My stepsister is watching in the pavilion. Hurry and call her. She is kind-hearted, and will surely save young Master Pei. The servants, filled with gratitude, hurried towards the pavilion. I stood far away and couldn't hear what was being said, but it was obvious that Wanqing was refusing, unwilling to compromise her reputation at this moment. She looked at me, panicked, pointed at me, and muttered to the servant. She must have pushed the responsibility onto me again. Wenqing walked towards the lake with her skirt hem lifted and small steps. She took off her shoes, ready to enter the water, hesitated for a moment, then put them back on, her face full of distress. Finally, she walked over to me, frowning. Her words were all reproach. My elder sister is a superb swimmer. Why doesn't she go save the prince consort Pei? I looked uneasy. It's not that sister doesn't want to save him, it's just that I haven't been underwater for a long time. My swimming is a bit rusty. I'm afraid that if I go down I might delay the rescue. I spoken again. Sister, your swimming skills are much better than mine. Are you willing to save Pei Shizi? She stared at me blankly, her eyes flickering with confusion. But sister, don't you admire Shizi? My whole body stiffened too. She is telling the truth. I have indeed admired Pei Jingxing since I was a child. In the previous life, he fell into the water. Without hesitation I jumped into the lake, using my slender body to pull him out of the lake. We were soaked through and pressed tightly together, as if naked. People around us were talking and gossiping, aware of what they were discussing. There is no doubt it concerns a woman's reputation, but I can't care about that for now. Their life is the most important. That incident nearly cost me half my life. I had a high fever in the middle of the night that wouldn't break, and nightmares plagued me all night. It was only because my father specially invited an imperial physician from the palace that I was pulled back from the brink of death. After I recovered, rumors about me spread throughout the capital. Noble families value a woman's reputation as much as her life. My father was no exception. Just as he cruelly prepared to send me to a nunnery, Marquis Yongning brought Pei Jingxing to propose marriage. The betrothal gifts were lavish, piled high like mountains, with countless gold, silver, and jade objects. Pei Jingxing's face was deathly pale, his expression indifferent. I thought he was recovering from a long illness. 3 months later, when she married Pei Jingxing, the capital was bustling, and the Hu family's gate was crowded with visitors. On the wedding night, Pei Jingxing's face looked extremely grim. He spoke to me with nothing but ridicule. Miss Shen, you saved me that day just to force me to marry you. I was stunned, and my heart felt pierced as if stabbed by a knife. It really is a good calculation. He implied all along that I was manipulative. I wanted to retort, but the words caught in my throat. After a moment of silence, I lifted my veil, went through the motions, and hurried to the bridal chamber. His expression was cold and devoid of emotion. The wedding night was not a happy one. News came from the Shen manor early in the morning. Wanqing hanged herself in her room at the marrow hour. The news struck like a bolt from the blue. I never would have imagined that my strong-willed concubine sister would be gone so soon. The relationship with Pei Jingxing deteriorated as a result. Every time they went to bed, it was like completing a chore, devoid of any life. Although he harbored resentment, he treated her with courtesy. We spent 10 years in mutual respect and deference until he went to the frontier to lead troops into battle, pierced by 100,000 arrows by the enemy, and died there when his body was carried back. My heart was torn by a knife. I threw myself on him and cried bitterly. I unintentionally caught a glimpse of the silver hairpin clutched tightly in his hand. Only then did I realize why he treated me this way. It is because of Wanqing. The silver hairpin was crafted by Wanqing's mother, and there is only this one in the world, so it turns out the person Pei Jingxing has been thinking of all along is Wanqing. So it turns out my admiration was a joke. My heart aches so much that the tears have dried up. Under his subordinate's hesitation, he still delivered his last words to me. He does not wish to share the same tomb with me in this life, only wishes to sleep for eternity with this silver hairpin. I complied with his wish. I buried her beside the Wanqing tomb. Now they are inseparable forever. Since heaven has given me a second chance to start over, I won't make the same mistake again this time. She's trying to force me to save Pei Jingxing, but I refuse. I sighed regretfully. That was in the past. The crown prince didn't like me, so there's no need to force things. Pei Jingxing sank deeper and deeper, his pleas for help growing weaker and weaker. The noble ladies from prominent families nearby began to criticize one after another. Lives are at stake. Who cares about reputation? Miss Shen, I remember a few days ago you were still rescuing a child in the lake, right? Your swimming skills were excellent at that time. The others all echoed in agreement. Yes, I also saw it that day. I had a nagging doubt, and I put the matter out of my mind. It seemed everyone was pushing me to get involved. I looked at them with a troubled expression. Then a smile spread across my lips. Okay, no way. Wenqing looked at me triumphantly. The moment I turned to leave, I rolled my eyes and fainted. For the next day, after sleeping soundly, I woke up stretching. I asked Kuiju who had finally saved Pei Jingxing yesterday. Kuiju let out a chuckle. Miss, it was Miss Wanqing who saved him yesterday. You didn't see her face at that moment. It was so funny. After I faked being unconscious that day, the others, seeing this, had no choice but to ask Wanqing to save me. Wanqing naturally refused. They spoke harshly, leaving her speechless with a retort. Saving a life is worth more than 7 levels of Buddhist pagodas. Moreover, this is the Prince Yi Pei. If you're unwilling to save her, be careful, her aunt will take your head. Pei Jingxing's aunt is the current empress. Even a corner of her mind cannot afford to offend her. After several inner struggles, Wanqing swam down and saved Pei Jingxing. I breathed a sigh of relief. In this life, I have fulfilled the wishes of this ill-fated couple. I can also be considered to have atoned for my past mistakes. In the spring of March, the earth revived, green shoots grew wildly, and the birds chirped incessantly. I'm planning to go to the hall to eat a steaming breakfast, but I heard my parents' stern scolding. Wow, you've really shamed the Shen family. How important a daughter's reputation is, and it's been ruined like this. Wenqing cried, tears streaming down like pear blossoms, gripping my father's sleeve tightly and crawling on the ground. Dad, I was also forced into it. If sister hadn't pretended to faint, how could this have happened? Father was furious, and with a roar he raised his hand and slapped her across the face. Her face instantly became red and swollen, like a steamed bun. You have the nerve to blame your sister. She knows fame and integrity come first, knows how to pretend to be dizzy, so why don't you pretend to be dizzy too? Wanqing hesitated and could not articulate the reason. Father stopped listening to her explanations and brought out the family law, administering 20 lashes. The entire process was filled with screams, cries for mercy, and the sounds of skin splitting and flesh tearing, never ceasing. Father clenched his teeth and used all his strength, showing no bias at all. After 20 lashes, Wanqing had already fainted. Father threw down the whip, and at over 50 years old, his stamina was no match for his younger days. After 20 lashes, he was out of breath from exhaustion. he sat slumped on a chair, and it took him a long time to recover. He ordered the severely weakened Wanqing to be thrown into the woodshed and forbidden to eat for 3 days. Showing no regard for their father-daughter bond, I felt no sympathy for Wanqing after all. In the previous life, I was the one punished. 5 At that time, I, like her, was beaten to a bloody pulp, flesh and blood blurred. The storeroom was crawling with centipedes and spiders. I already fear these many-legged creatures, and I cried out desperately for mercy. They all pretended they didn't hear. There was nothing I could do but accept my fate. In the middle of the night, I was in so much pain I couldn't sleep, my lips were dry, and I wanted to get out of bed to drink some water. When I pulled back the blanket, I found a mouse gnawing at my injured leg. It must have been the smell of blood that attracted them. I lit a torch and drove the rats away. I tore off my undershirt and wrapped it around the wound on my calf. Although it wasn't very effective, it at least kept the rats away. I spent the next 3 long days in fear. When they finally let me out, I was gaunt and emaciated, barely recognizable, and reeking of a foul odor. Wanqing covered her mouth and nose with disdain at the sight. "Sister, you're so dirty, you're suffocating me." My face turned horribly pale, and I hurried to take a bath. Wanqing cried out repeatedly in the woodshed, her voice collapsing, and the door was slammed violently. "Let me out, father, your daughter knows she was wrong." "Ah, a rat. So many rats. Open the door quickly. There are so many centipedes and spiders here." Wanqing is so scared. The guard at the door was as indifferent as in the previous life. 3 days later, the Duke of Yongning came for a betrothal, carrying piles of wedding gifts. They were carried into the mansion, box after box, same as in the previous life. Only the person has been changed to Wanqing this lifetime. He finally, as he wished, proposed to the one he admires. He should be very happy, right? Father had always been troubled by Wanqing's reputation being ruined, fearing no one would propose to Wanqing. Now with Pei Jingxing proposing, the matter would be resolved, and moreover the Hu family is a prestigious lineage. If the marriage succeeds, it would also add luster to the Shen family. This is a win-win situation. Thinking of this, his eyes lit up with a smile, and he immediately lifted Wanqing's confinement. The Marquis and his father had a very pleasant conversation. The marriage was soon agreed upon. When leaving, the Lord held Wanqing's birth date and 8 characters, preparing to go to the Daoist temple to compute the 8 characters. 6 Watching him stride away, beaming with joy, recalling the previous life. Because of the issue of reputation, the Marquis had no choice but to propose marriage on behalf of Pei Jingxing. The Marquis's expression was extremely grim, showing no joy at all about his son's proposal. It must be that Pei Jingxing was dissatisfied with this engagement, but out of consideration for me having ruined my reputation to save him, he had no choice but to accept his fate and marry me. He struggled fiercely, arguing with the Marquis, causing an unbearable commotion. Only then did the matchmaker's proposal bring no joy to the Lord. On their wedding night, Wanqing hanged herself. Pei Jingxing thought it was because her feelings for him ran so deep she could not extricate herself, and she would not accept the man she loved marrying someone else, which led to her suicide. In fact, that was not the case. It's because of the crown prince in her past life. She refused to rescue Pei Jingxing and pushed me out because she was determined to become the crown princess. She did not wish to compromise her reputation for this. Unfortunately, the crown prince was secretly expanding his influence and preparing to marry the prime minister's daughter. Wanqing had long lost her virtue to the crown prince, and there was already a child in her womb. For the sake of the Shen family's reputation, my parents found a young county magistrate's son to take over the duty. Wanqing despised the lowly family background and was unwilling to marry him. Seeing that I married into the Marquis household and became the heir apparent's wife, and she could only choose a son of a 9th-rank official, the gap between them was enormous. She was unwilling, in order to be forever engraved in Pei Jingxing's heart, in order to make him hate me, distance me, and detest me, she risked her life, becoming a permanent thorn in the hearts of Pei Jingxing and me. She did indeed get her wish. Pei Jingxing could never forget her for a lifetime. She became the perpetual softness in his heart. Even disregarding worldly opinions and family opposition, she chose to be separated from me and be buried with him. 7 That day, I went to visit Wanqing, who was bedridden. In that moment of seeing her, it was as if I was seeing my past self, so gaunt, so sallow and emaciated. I composed my features, feigned gentleness, and slowly walked towards her. "How is my sister's health?" Her face was filled with hatred, and she gritted her teeth. "Sister, please stop being so fake." I was confused. "Why?" She looked up at me, her eyes filled with boundless hatred. "Why? That day you clearly could have saved him. Why didn't you save him?" I explained. "Why save him? Are a woman's honor or a stranger's life more important?" "I can still tell the difference clearly." Wanqing sneered. "Hehe. Who in the capital doesn't know that you have admired the crown prince since you were little? Would you easily pass up such a good opportunity?" I lowered my eyes and saw the herbal decoction beside me, picked it up, and lightly scooped a spoonful. My sister must have forgotten. She never said she was in love with the crown prince. Instead, she heard that you and Pei Jingxing share mutual affection. Now, with both parties satisfied, your love and his devotion, this will surely become a beautiful story. Wanqing's face turned ashen, and she stood frozen in place. She still wants to become the crown princess. Pei Jingxing was merely a stepping stone for her upward climb. She needed him to strategize on her behalf from beginning to end. He was nothing more than her tool. She stammered, as if a fishbone were stuck in her throat. "Sister, you should rest well. When the date is set, you will marry into the Marquis's mansion with great ceremony and become the heir's wife. After leaving, the peach blossoms in the courtyard drift with the wind, fall to the ground, rot in the soil, and finally become decayed fodder for the land. No matter how blossoms bloom, they will ultimately become dust." The sound of a teacup breaking echoed in the room, and Wanqing's unwilling roar. "8. I have returned to my own yard." As soon as I stepped in, I saw Pei Jingxing striding over here. He walked so quickly that his clothes fluttered in the wind, blown into a mess, utterly lacking the demeanor of a noble family. Thinking that one more thing is worse than one less, it is best that we never meet again in this life. I opened the door as quickly as possible, and as I stepped inside, my arm was grabbed by a pair of strong hands. Not wanting to get tangled up with him any further, I sighed helplessly. Turning my head, I saw Pei Jingxing with an anxious face and furrowed brows. 3 days seemed to have exhausted 10 years of his life. His eyes were ashen, as if he hadn't rested properly for days. I lowered my head and looked at him, gripping my hand, pretending to be surprised. As I raised my eyes to look at him, he released my hand in a panic, his gaze dodging. I tried to relax, not leaving a single flaw. "Young Master P must be here to look for Wanqing, right?" He hesitated, his mouth opening and closing, but no words came out. In the end, he only nodded. I led him into Wanqing's room. As soon as I saw Pei Jingxing, Wanqing sadly shed tears. "Gij Jingxing," she cried, delicate as a pear blossom, deliberately or unintentionally brushing back her sleeve to reveal the whip marks on her arm. Pei Jingxing's face showed shock as he lifted her arm. "Wanqing, what is this?" Wanqing's misty eyes were pitiful, and she leaned aggrievedly into Pei Jingxing's embrace. Pei Jingxing gently tucked a strand of her hair behind her ear, his eyes full of heartache. "Wanqing, it hurts a lot, doesn't it?" He took Wanqing's arm and gently blew on it so carefully, as if afraid it would melt. "It won't hurt after I blow on it. Father has already matched our horoscopes, and the date will be set soon. Don't worry, you just need to wait peacefully to marry me." Wanqing nodded softly and delicately. At this moment, I finally understood. So gentle and affectionate is he when loving someone. What I thought in a previous life about mutual care and intimate closeness was merely his perfunctory complacency in order not to disturb them. I turned and walked away. When I passed by the garden, he called me to stop again. 9. What a coincidence to meet again. Something whispers in my mind. "Are you busy, Master Pei?" He hesitates to speak, seeming a bit nervous, then relaxes, lowering his gaze to look at me. "Why didn't you save me that day when I fell into the water?" I was utterly astonished. He had deliberately blocked me just to reproach me for not saving him. On that day, it wasn't that I refused to help. Rescuing the crown prince would have been the greatest honor for any woman in the capital. But the weather was extremely hot that day. I'm rather delicate, and just days prior, I had pulled a young boy, about 8 years old, from the lake. My body hadn't fully recovered, and as a result, I suffered from heat stroke. That is why I humbly asked the Crown Prince not to hold it against me. Besides, Lady Wanqing and the Crown Prince were already deeply in love. Now that your engagement has been officially announced, your wishes have come true. Truly, two lovers have finally found each other. What joyous news! He was startled, not expecting me to congratulate him, and even less expecting that I had already lost all interest in him. Pei Jingxing remained silent, his face pale as he lowered his gaze. A gloomy shadow fell under his eyelids. As soon as he raised his hand, I immediately stepped back. His overly aloof demeanor seemed to surprise him, a strange sound gurgling in his throat, which he hurriedly suppressed, finally flashing a helpless smile. Miss Shan-san seems to be very afraid of getting involved with me. I am a little uneasy, and I always feel there is something implicit in his words. Could it be that he is also reborn? On second thought, such a guess is absolutely impossible. If he were reborn, it would be impossible for him to stay silent and soak in the lake, waiting for someone to rescue him, because after being saved from falling into the water in his previous life, the rumor that the heir of Marquis Yongning couldn't swim spread among the noble families of Shangjing, tarnishing his reputation as the most accomplished and versatile in the capital and tearing off his fig leaf. Therefore, he specifically learned to swim because of this. This matter was a thorn in his side, and he couldn't just wait to be ridiculed again. Thinking of this, I breathed a sigh of relief, looked straight into my eyes and calmly says, "The Crown Prince is Wanqing's fiancé. There should naturally be some distance, otherwise people will talk behind our backs." He laughs at himself wryly. This Crown Prince is not afraid. As the saying goes, during the day I do nothing wrong, and at night I fear no doors being knocked by ghosts. I have a clear conscience. He pauses for a moment, carefully sizing me up, as if trying to discern something from my face. Miss Shen is not a timid mouse. Could it be that she is feeling guilty? His eyes corners lifted, his lips slightly curled. In a smug, somewhat overconfident manner, the heir apparent is probably overthinking this. His gaze narrowed slightly, with a hint of dissatisfaction, his voice deep and formidable. "I remember you didn't grow up not secretly liking me, did you?" I was dumbfounded, chest heaving, in disbelief. So he had always known my feelings for him, and in the last life he even guessed me this way. In the last life he always thought I married him to humiliate Wanqing. No matter how one explains it, he pretends not to hear, driving an already precarious relationship to the freezing point, until it reached an point of no return. I raised my eyes to meet his gaze, my eyes cold. That was in the past. Nowadays I no longer harbor such foolish fantasies. I hope His Highness the Prince Consort will not bring this up again, lest Wanqing be heartbroken in silence. As soon as the words fell, he looked at me, his gaze sharp. "You are different from before. People can change, it is impossible to stay in place forever." I truly cannot understand the subtext of His Highness the Crown Prince's words. I, Yunshu, am dull-witted. I hope His Highness will not fault me. He no longer lingered, waved his sleeve, and left. The sun had already set, its remaining rays falling on him, casting his tall, pine-like silhouette long and accentuating his loneliness and desolation. From then on, Pei Jingxing frequently visited the Shen Manor. He would either play chess with his father or spar with his elder brother. Gradually, we became more and more familiar with each other. These days I've been avoiding him, trying not to see him whenever possible. Noon, he was so engrossed in sparring with his elder brother that when he looked up, it was already time for a meal, so his parents kept him for dinner. The new servant didn't know I couldn't eat mushrooms and placed them in front of me. Just as I was about to get up and move the mushrooms, Pei Jingxing took them away first, frowned, and began to scold the servant. "Don't you know Yunshu can't eat mushrooms? Are you trying to kill her?" His face was ferocious, his eyes were red with rage, and the maidservant trembled in fear, facing his thunderous anger. I was horrified. How could he know I was allergic to mushrooms? Could my previous guess have been right? Pei Jingxing had also been reborn. Nowadays, I can't worry about so much, and distancing myself from him is the most important thing. Wen Qing was very surprised, and looked at my face full of anger. "Jingxing brother, how did you know sister couldn't eat mushrooms? I remember I never told you about my sister." She turned pale with grievance and tearfully looked at Pei Jingxing. wanting to speak but stopping. Could it be that you and my sister, she means to push me into the abyss of coveting my brother-in-law, severing love with a sword, to ruin my reputation exactly as vile as in the previous life. I cannot stand by and let her slander me. Just as I was about to explain, Pei Jingxing beat me to it, and he explained casually, I just heard a maid say that when I was sparring with young Master Shen, Wanqing did not believe him. However, Pei Jingxing glared at her with a strong, hostile look, and Wen Qing was immediately startled and began to sob upon hearing it. Jingxing Gij, I just love you too much and am afraid of losing you, Dad, and also hurried to smooth things over, which finally eased the atmosphere. After seeing Pei Jingxing off, my father found me 11. His expression was solemn. After a long sigh, he said earnestly, Yun Shu, everyone in the capital knew you had a crush on Pei Jingxing before. Now that he is Wen Qing's fiancé, you must restrain yourself and act with propriety, and do not engage in any improper behavior. Daughter has not had any private dealings with Pei Jingxing, and in this life, she will never have any connection with him. After hearing this, father said nothing more, but ordered someone to bring a picture album. Opening the album, it was filled with the eligible young noblemen from the prominent families of the capital. I looked into my father's stern eyes. I understood his intention. He feared that the night would grow long and full of dreams, and wanted to marry me off early as well. Yun Shu, you have also passed the coming-of-age ceremony, so it's time to find a family of suitable status to marry you. I nod to show that I understand. This is an eligible heir from a noble family suitable for the capital's arrival, and I've helped you check it for you, the legitimate son of the Xiao Guogong residents. I flipped through page by page, let out a long sigh. The people in the album either got fat, or short, or were hideous. I can only say they all had noses and ears, and were men. Each one was more disappointing than the last. Not even as good as Pei Jingxing, although he was heartless. At least his face was like jade and his appearance like Pan En. When I turned to the last page, my hand stopped and I couldn't put it down for a long time. Is the third-ranked scholar Xie Huaijin in a past life after Pei Jingxing died. It was he who stayed by my side all along. That year I was despondent, wanting to follow Pei Jingxing to go away several times, and it was he who saved me and brought me back. I scolded him for minding other people's business. He laughed listlessly, completely different from the impression of a dashing scholar. You hanged yourself and I saved you. It proves that your destined end should not be death. So, Madam, who shall live a long life and enjoy blessings and health in the future. I froze on the spot. After an inner struggle, I thought what he said made a lot of sense. After being rescued by him in 2 or 3 times when I tried to hang myself, it seemed that the heavens did not want to accept me. After that, I gave up the idea. In his daily company, the gloom soon lifted gradually, feelings stirred, yet no one broke the quiet. He remained a bachelor all his life. I remained unmarried for my whole life until 12 years later, he passed away due to illness. Only when his trusted aide handed over his belongings to me did I learn that he had long cherished me. It was just too late, and there was no way to undo it. To protect my safety, someone in the court regarded Pei Jing's behavior as a thorn in the side, and in the end it was always him who took action to resolve it. Several times he attempted to hang himself but failed, not because life should end, but because Xie Huaijin worried and kept quietly watching my every move. To prevent me from doing something foolish, we agreed to stay together for a lifetime in this life. Xie Huaijin, this time it's my turn to come to you. Carefully tracing Xie Huaijin's face, after a moment I walked toward my father. Say to him, Father, let's go with Xie Huaijin, this year's 3rd place scholar, 12. Father was very shocked. Have you thought this through? His family background doesn't compare to the previous candidates. My mind is made up. Dad, I choose him. Father sighed helplessly and nodded in agreement. Even if he didn't say it, I understood. In fact, he admired Xie Huaijin more than anyone in his past life. He had praised him more than once for being skilled in both literary and military arts, an exceptionally rare talent. His expression was calm, yet the corners of his mouth turned up. Daughter, what do you think of father's eyesight? He stammered, his words disjointed. I guess so. Your father heard that there are many noble ladies in the capital who fancy him. You should hurry. Understood. Father found an opportunity to invite Xie Huaijin. I followed and went to see him. When I arrived, he had been waiting at the Lotus Pavilion for a long time. I wore a brocade robe with plum and bamboo patterns, specially tailored at the 100 Flowers Pavilion, with a head ornament and a white jade doublefish pendant at my waist. In a previous life, he already liked to see me in this outfit. Whenever we met, his face would flush red, and his brows and eyes revealed pure shyness. I don't know if, on this reunion with an old friend, I will still glimpse the colors of the past. I take slow steps toward the Lotus Pavilion. Even if I move in small strides, my ornaments clink and chime. Xie Huaijin hurriedly stood up, hands lightly clasped together, head bowed very low. Seeming very shy, Dad goes straight to the point. My youngest daughter has reached marriageable age, and I see that the Tanhualang is young and talented, and I am interested in arranging a marriage. Before he could finish his words, Xie Huaijin blurted out, "The young son-in-law is willing to wed Miss Shen III. Actually, I am not satisfied with the adults. I have long admired Miss Shen-san and had planned to propose marriage next month. So early, a year earlier than in his previous life." After arranging everything, Xie Huaijin began preparing the betrothal gifts early. Passing by his residence, the servants bustle about in a flurry, preparing everything. In a past life, Pei Jingxing's betrothal was pared down to the bare minimum. Now, for the first time, I feel truly valued. 3 days later is the polo match. Pei Jingxing and Xie Huaijin both participated. I remember that in the past Xie Huaijin always pretended to be sick and unable to attend, but this time he is willing to participate. The young gentlemen are galloping on their horses. Pei Jingxing grabbed the ball and dodged ahead, but just as he was about to enter the circle, he was kicked away by Xie Huaijin, who quickly took it and seized the opportunity. Pei Jingxing rushed to snatch it, but Xie Huaijin dodged him at every turn. At a crucial moment, Xie Huaijin kicked it in with a final stroke. He won this round. In the second round, Pei Jingxing fought back to win one game. Third round, Pei Jingxing, seeing victory within his grasp, got carried away. Xie Huaijin scored first, and ultimately Xie Huaijin won the final victory. This match was exceptionally exciting. The emperor was overjoyed and immediately decided to reward Xie Huaijin. "Your Majesty, I do not seek rewards. I only wish for your Majesty to grant me a marriage." "Oh, Lord Xie, who has always been so pure and detached, has also seen the light. Which young miss do you, Minister Xie, fancy?" Xie Huaijin looked at me with unwavering determination. "Your servant wishes to ask His Majesty to grant a marriage between this servant and Miss Shen-san." Those present began to discuss amongst themselves. The emperor was overjoyed and immediately granted the marriage. Pei Jingxing's face turned ashen, and he looked at me in disbelief. I hurriedly dodged his gaze. Pei Jingxing's face turned extremely ugly, and he knelt on the ground with a thud. "My nephew also wishes to seek a betrothal. You want to. Today is really a double delight, double happiness coming at once. Who do you want to betroth? Is it Miss Shen Wu?" Pei Jingxing wanted to speak but held back, stammering awkwardly. "My nephew wishes to arrange a marriage with Miss Shen-san, as soon." As these words were spoken, the room fell silent, as quiet as the sound of a needle dropping. The emperor wore no expression, his voice low and stern, clearly dissatisfied with Pei Jingxing. "I recall you were already betrothed to Miss Shen Wu." "Yes." The emperor was furious. "Then you still have the audacity to request a marriage decree. Shen Yunshu is Wanqing's elder sister." Pei Jingxing hurriedly crawled to the ground, his voice trembling. "I, as a minister, am willing to marry Miss Shen-san. As a primary wife, I will never treat Yunshu badly in this life." 14. I was furious beyond measure, longing to kick him in the head with one stomp. We despised each other in the previous life to the extreme, yet we still wouldn't let go, leaving each other a shred of face. Seeing that things were turning bad, the empress grasped my hand and asked softly, "Better to ask Yunshu for her own wish." "Yushu, who are you admiring?" My gaze was unwavering, my voice firm and clear as I knelt to implore His Majesty. "I, Your Honor, admire Master Xie." Pei Jingxing could not believe it. "What? How is that possible? You are clearly so." Before Pei Jingxing could finish, the empress had him dragged away. The matter spread throughout Shangjing and also reached the Shen Manor. Wanqing made a tremendous racket, throwing things everywhere. And the sound of porcelain breaking in the room was endless. You actually dare to covet my things, truly shameless to the extreme. She spewed curses, hurling insults. Without restraint, I no longer indulged her and kicked the door open, slapping her across the face, showing no courtesy, scolding my elder sister, spreading it will ruin the Shen family's reputation. She laughed hysterically, her eyes unfocused. You're the one shamelessly stealing your sister's fiancé. So who is really bringing shame to the Shen household? I was furious and my heart pounded with anger, and I slapped her hard on the left side of her face. Then I threw her in front of my parents. Wanqing lay on the ground, crying so much that she sobbed uncontrollably, her breath coming in ragged gasps. Dad, why does elder sister have to compete with me for everything? Even brother Jingxing is being taken away. I only have brother Jingxing left. I cannot lose her again. Please grant my wish. Father, her father, heartbroken for her, reluctantly approached Pei Jingxing, hoping to expedite the wedding, who knew that Pei Jingxing's expression would be cold and his voice chilling, a stark contrast to his previous demeanor. It's not impossible for me to marry Wanqing, unless Yunshu agrees to marry me as well. Father's anger was unstoppable, his simply beastly. Wanqing is not unwanted. There's no need to endure such grievances. The engagement ended unhappily. 15 The next morning Pei Jingxing found me. His eyes were dark and sunken, his expression gloomy and listless, and he was completely dejected upon seeing me. She lit up with joy, grabbing my hand, her eyes full of affection. Yunshu, please don't marry Xie Huijin. Okay. I pulled at the corner of my clothes, my expression cold. I don't know what nonsense the air is talking. I have already betrothed to Xie Huijin, and I will never marry anyone else. He let go of her hand with a defeated sigh, then became furious in annoyance. Didn't you like me? Didn't you say you would marry me at all costs? His words failed to move me at all, my expression still calm and unruffled. Those are all in the past. Times have changed. My love for you has long since been worn away by the passage of time. To me now, you are nothing but a small, inconsequential passerby. Pei Jingxing was stunned and stood frozen on the spot, unable to recover for a long time. Later, I heard that day, he rode his horse to the imperial palace and requested the emperor to revoke the decree. The emperor was furious and refused to see him. Closing the palace gates, he knelt at the entrance of the main hall and refused to get up. He even blocked the emperor's path. The emperor was furious and, in his anger, ordered him to be beaten 30 times with a cane. Pei Jingxing's skin was torn and flesh exposed from the beating, but he stubbornly refused to beg for mercy. She was sent back to the marquis's mansion by the empress. She lay in bed for half a month and couldn't get up. Wen Qing took care of her every day. No matter how her parents tried to stop her, she always found a way to sneak out. After a while, they became annoyed and stopped caring, letting her do as she pleased. As soon as I could get out of bed, I went back to the palace and knelt to beg the empress. The empress, with no other choice, summoned me to the palace, knowing that my visit would surely be related to Pei Jingxing. I feigned illness, and my father entered the palace in my stead. After the empress spoke a few words, she let my father leave. They all said things like think it over carefully. 16 A few days later, Pei Jingxing would get completely drunk every day at my doorstep. When he got drunk, he'd insist on seeing me. If I refused to see him, he'd keep knocking on the door. The neighbors suffer from it greatly. To completely cut off his thoughts, I met him this time. I earnestly advised him, Pei Jingxing, this time, let's part on good terms. Tears streamed down his face, his sanity on the brink of collapse. Yunshu, you've been reborn too, haven't you? I remained silent. He continued, my past life I didn't see my own heart clearly. After I died, I have been drifting by your side. I regret what I did to you in the previous life. I know the hurt I caused you cannot be undone, but in this life, can you give me a chance to make up for it? I let out a sigh. Too late. He wasn't willing to give up and said a lot. So it turns out what he liked all along was me. But he mistakenly thought he liked Wanqing. After Wanqing died, he felt he had let her down, so he decided to cold shoulder me. But after spending every day together, he once again uncontrollably fell in love with me. He could not accept a change of heart in himself and decided to guard the frontier. This guarding went on for years. He regretted it, want to go home, want to see me, thinking that after the last battle he would come back to find me. But unexpectedly he walked into the enemy's ambush before dying. He took out the silver hairpin that Wanqing carried with her, and at the sight of the silver hairpin what he thought of was not Wanqing but me. At this moment he finally understands that what he has always liked was me, but it's all too late. He pleads bitterly for one more chance to make amends. I am not moved at all, my heart has long since moved away from you. He heard that and fell to the ground, looking up at the sky with red eyes. Afterward, he finally gave up and no longer bothered me. 3 months later, the wedding with Xie Huaijin was held 10 miles of city walls where a festive red, and the mansion's guests crowd like rain, bustling with excitement. On the wedding night, he lifted the red veil. When he saw me, a look of astonishment flashed across his face. Clouds part, you are truly beautiful tonight. My cheeks burned. I quickly lowered my head, not daring to look at him. Xie Huaijin lightly raised my chin and gazed at me passionately. Watching him shyly turn his face away, he leaned in, pressed a gentle kiss on me, and lowered the curtain to press forward. The wedding outfits were hurled out one by one. The evening breeze blew in through the wooden window. The red candle swayed with the wind, recounting the joys in the room. Pei Jingxing finally married Wanqing. She forced him with her death. Pei Jingxing was left with no alternative. After getting married, Wanqing's arrogant and overbearing nature was revealed. She would beat and scold her maids at the slightest displeasure, making the Marquis's manor a constant scene of chaos day and night. The servants lived in constant fear. Pei Jingxing is in miserable shape, spends all day going to brothels and drinking. Wanqing caused a bigger scene over this. He directly took a person to a brothel to catch cheating, but Pei Jingxing only went for a drink, and there was absolutely no crossing of lines or wrongdoing toward her. She, however, refused to back down. It even escalated to a physical fight. She herself was restless and suspicious all day, which eventually led to a miscarriage. The imperial physicians diagnosed that she would be unable to conceive again in the future. Her temper became increasingly volatile. Because of this, she always felt that everyone in the mansion was mocking her as a barren hen, and she would beat and scold the maids. The Marquis of Yongning's estate needs an heir to the title. It cannot be without a successor. The Lord wants to take Pei Jingxing as a concubine. After Wanqing found out, she threatened to die and was hysterical all day. For the sake of the Marquis's estate's reputation, he finally had to give up. 10 years later, Pei Jingxing volunteered to guard the frontier. He bravely fought on the battlefield, repeatedly earning meritorious service. The Holy One was greatly pleased and ordered him to return to the palace to receive his reward. But on the final battlefield, he was pierced by 10,000 arrows and died at the frontier. It is said that his body was already putrid when it was carried back. Wanqing found the pungent smell unbearable and kept her distance. Fearing it would bring bad luck, she inadvertently saw the embroidered handkerchief Pei Jinghang was holding. Lotuses were embroidered on it. She recognized that it was my work, coupled with Pei Jingxing's dying wish to not be buried in the same tomb as her after death, but to sleep with my embroidered handkerchief. Overcome with rage, she hanged herself from the beam with a white silk scarf. There were also words written in blood on the table. It says, Pei Jingxing betrayed me. I did not repeat the mistakes of my past life. I never imagined she would follow in my footsteps. Extra 1. Xie Huaijin's notebook. In the 14th year of Jinning spring, the first time I saw her, the peach blossoms were in full bloom. That day at the Apricot Grove banquet, a newly minted Jincha took a flower as he wandered the garden. I ranked among the top 3, proud to be a pavilion-ranked Huguang, supposed to be full of vigor. But after a few cups from the same cohort I became groggy and hid behind the rockery to wake up. She was the one who barged in at that moment in a pale yellow blouse, with black hair like a waterfall, clutching a peach blossom. Just in full bloom, her steps hurried, as if avoiding someone. She didn't see me, went straight into the gap of the artificial hill, colliding with me head-on, peach blossom petals sprinkled all over my head and face. She cried out, raised her eyes to look at me, and those eyes reflected the spring light as well as the embarrassed me. Sorry. She quickly stepped back, ears flushed, rambling apologies. I didn't mean to collide with the prince, really, it was just that. someone was chasing after me. I hadn't had a chance to speak when a maid's voice came from outside the fake rockery. Third miss, where are you?" Her face changed color. She hurriedly stuffed that peach blossom into my hand, lowering her voice. "Keep this for me. I will return it to you someday." After saying that, she lifted her skirt and, in a flash, ran away. I held the peach blossom, standing behind the fake rockery, and for a long time I couldn't regain my senses. That year, I was 19 and she was 14. I later learned that she was the third young lady of the Shen family, her given name Yun Shu, and that she had been sent to the palace for upbringing since childhood, being the designated candidate for crown princess. The person she was hiding from that day was an attendant of Crown Prince Pei Jingxing. Pei Jingxing wanted to see her, but she was unwilling and fled. I should not have had any interaction with her, but that peach blossom branch, I never returned. In the end, I pressed it between the pages of a book for 3 whole years. The petals had long since dried, their color faded, leaving only a brittle, tan-brown sliver as thin as a cicada's wing. Every time I flipped through the book and saw it, I would recall those eyes and that plea, "Keep it for me." 3 years later, she indeed got married. She didn't marry a prince, but the prince himself. Pei Jingxing fell into the water, and she risked her life to save him, her reputation ruined. The Marquis's mansion proposed marriage, leaving her no choice. On their wedding day, I stood in the crowd on the long street, watching the bridal sedan chair carried from the Shen Manor to the Marquis of Yongning's mansion, 10 miles of red dowry, drums and gongs blaring, yet she was as quiet as a porcelain doll. Not lifting the sedan curtain to glance at me, I held that withered peach branch and stood at the street corner for a long time. Later, a colleague dragged me to drink, and I got so drunk that they laughed at me, saying a top scholar would be entangled by love. I shook my head with a smile and said it wasn't the case. Since then I deliberately kept away from everyone and everything related to her. I thought time would wash away everything, but I was wrong too. Guardianship. In the 17th year of Jianing, Pei Jingxing was on the frontier, and she alone guarded the Marquis's mansion. I shouldn't have known about her, but as it happened, a colleague was a retainer at the Marquis's mansion. He occasionally mentioned that she was not living well, that she and the heir treated each other with courtesy, but without any affection. He also said that she often sat alone in the garden, lost in thought, for an entire afternoon. My heart felt as if it had been clutched by something. I began to secretly pay attention to the movements of the Hu's mansion. It wasn't intentional, it was just a habit. Whenever I passed by, I would unconsciously slow my steps, looking at the vermilion lacquered main gate, and at the begonias peeking over the wall. In the 19th year of Jianing, Pei Jingxing died on the battlefield, and his dying wish was not to be buried with her. When the news arrived, I was compiling history in the Hanlin Academy. The tip of my brush paused, the ink bled, staining a page. I put down my pen, took leave, and went to the Marquis's mansion. She didn't wail and cry, nor did she shut herself away. She quietly handled the funeral arrangements, and quietly took over the management of the Marquis's mansion, as still as a stagnant pool. But the quieter she was, the more worried I became. As expected, on the night of the 7th day, she hanged herself. I sent someone to secretly watch over her and rescue her in time. When he reported to me, I didn't even have time to put on my shoes, ran barefoot through 3 streets, and rushed into the Hu residence. She lay on the couch, pale as death, with a stark, visible strangulation mark on her neck. Seeing me, she tugged at the corner of her mouth, her voice hoarse. "Master Xie, you meddle again." I knelt beside her couch, trembling all over. "Can't utter a word. You hanged yourself and I saved you, which means fate didn't allow you to die yet." I barely managed to find my voice again. "So, Madam Hu, you must live a long life from now on, and prosper and be blessed." She stared at me with tears in her eyes, confusion, and a trace of something I couldn't understand. After that, I went to the Hu family residence every day to accompany her. At first, she didn't want to see me and had the doorman turn me away, so I stood outside her door, waiting for over an hour. She relented and finally let me in. I don't offer comforting words, nor do I mention Pei Jingxing. I simply play chess with her, admire flowers with her, and engage in casual conversation. Occasionally, when her mood brightens, she'll brew me a cup of tea, and amidst the fragrant steam, the gloom in her eyes would lighten a little. There was a time when she suddenly asked me, "Sir, why haven't you married yet?" I froze for a moment and said casually, "I haven't met the right one." She let out an "oh," lowered her head, and the roots of her ears turned red again. My heartbeat was like a drum, but I dared not say anything. "She is the Marchioness, the widow of Pei Jingxing. If I were to speak, I would be overstepping, I would be offending, and I would be placing her in an unjust position. I cannot speak." 3. Regrettable affairs. In the 29th year of Jenning, I fell ill. Illness came like a mountain collapse. The imperial physician says it is a illness brought on by excessive labor, and that medicine and extirpation are useless. I lie on the couch, watching the autumn leaves outside turning yellow, and suddenly I am afraid. It is not fear of death, it is fear that after death, I will never see her again. She came to visit me, bringing soup she brewed herself. I leaned on the pillow, watching her busy silhouette, my heart sour and hard to bear. "Sir, you will surely get well." When she spoke these words, her eyes were red. I smiled, not replying. Before parting, she placed a branch of peach blossom by my pillow. It wasn't a real peach blossom, it was made of silk, lifelike, with dew embroidered on the petals. "That branch you kept for me. I learned about it later." She turned away from me, her voice soft. "I'll return this branch to you." I held the silk peach branch, tears streaming down my face. I want to tell her that I don't want her to repay me. I only want her to be well, but I opened my mouth and in the end I did not speak that night. I summoned my confidant and handed him a letter. "After I die, give it to her." The confidant knelt on the ground, crying so hard that he could not speak. I closed my eyes, and what appeared in my mind was when I was 14, she wore a pale yellow shirt, tucked a peach blossom into my hand, and said, "Keep this for me." This keeping has become a lifetime, for, after death, the moment the soul detached from the body, I saw the light, not Buddha's light, not the light of the netherworld, but the candlelight in her study. My soul drifted to the Hu family. Drifting into her study, she sat by the lamp, undid my letter, reading it word by word. There were only a few words on the letter. "Yunshu personally opens this letter. The peach blossoms have faded, treasured until now. If we have no destiny in this life, we will continue it in the next. Do not mourn. Xie Huijin's humble respects." She held the letter, tears streaming down her face. I wanted to reach out and wipe away her tears, but my fingers passed through her cheeks, unable to touch anything. I stood by her side and watched her cry all night, my heart being cut by a dull blade, slice after slice, no blood, yet the pain made my soul tremble. Rebirth. When I opened my eyes again, I was lying in the study at the Xie residence, still holding that withered peach in my hand. Birds chirped outside the window, and the sunlight was just right. I was stunned for a long time before I realized it. I had been reborn. I was back in the 14th year of Jenning, the year before everything began. The first thing I did was not to look for her, but to go near the Shen mansion. I had to confirm one thing. Had she also returned? On the day of the spring hunt, I stood far away on the hillside, watching everything in the hunting ground. She stood atop a boulder, narked her bow, and aimed not at a stag but at Pei Jingxing. 2 arrows were shot, one grazing the ear, the other sinking into the shoulder. My heart skipped a beat. She returned. She was reborn too. That moment, I almost couldn't help rushing over to hold her in my arms, but I restrained myself, because I knew that in this life, she would not marry Pei Jingxing again. The path she must take is different from mine. I can't bother her. I can only wait for her to approach me actively. VI, Lotus Pavilion. I have waited that day. Master Shen asked me to meet at the Lotus Pavilion, saying we would drink tea and discuss poetry. I vaguely had a premonition in my heart, so I arrived early, sat in the pavilion, and my palms were all sweaty. She arrived, wearing that brocade suit embroidered with plum blossoms and bamboo, with a hairpin crown, and a white jade twinfish pendant at her waist. It was exactly the same as the outfit she most often wore in the previous life. I recognized her at a glance. She came forward with a shuffled step, her ornaments jingling, and every step struck at the core of my heart. I hurriedly stood up, lowered my eyes to avoid looking at her, and unconsciously clasped my hands together, so nervous like a raw youth. Master Shen cut to the chase and said he wanted to seal the marriage. I blurted out, "Your son-in-law is willing to happily wed Miss Shen." As soon as the words came out, I realized what I had said. Lord Shen was stunned, and she was stunned as well. After a moment, she lowered her head, and the corners of her lips curved upward. My heart pounded like a drum, almost leaping out of my chest. "Actually, Your Honor, I have long admired Miss Shen-san, and I had planned to propose next month." Lord Shen laughed heartily, saying 3 times in a row, "Excellent." She kept her head bowed, her ears flushed red, just like she did 14 years ago when she bumped into my arms. 7. Marriage. On our wedding day, a procession of 10 miles, I rode a tall horse, adorned with a flower and draped in red, leading the wedding procession. The crackle of firecrackers, the wail of swoners, and the cheers of congratulations blended into a cacophony. I couldn't hear anything but my own heartbeat. The sedan chair fell at the door of the Xie household, and I drew back the curtain and reached out to help her up. Her hand was small and very cold, trembling slightly. I held her tightly and whispered in her ear, "Don't be afraid." Her fingers curled in my palm, as if a small animal had found a den, and gradually stopped trembling, bowing to heaven and earth, bowing to the high hall. The couple perform a joint bow sent into the bridal chamber. After we finished the nuptial wine, I picked up the weighing pole and lifted her red veil in the candlelight. Her face was like peach blossoms in March, with shy eyes and a smile on her lips. "Yun Shu, you are truly beautiful tonight." She lowered her head, her face flushing even more. I reached out, gently lifting her chin. She looked up at me, and in those eyes there was no lingering sadness from a past life, no restrained tears, only sparkling water brightness and a faint smile. The curtain fell, and the red candle swayed. This time, I could finally tell her openly and plainly, "Yun Shu, I've waited for you for 2 lifetimes." She was stunned, then smiled, and as she smiled, tears began to fall. "I know," she said, "so, this lifetime, it's my turn to find you." 8. Daily life. Married life was simple, yet sweet in every way. She disliked mushrooms, so I instructed the kitchen that under no circumstances were mushrooms to be included in any dish prepared for my wife. The servants were puzzled, but I simply stated she was allergic, and they took note. On one occasion, a new maid forgot and placed a plate of mushroom and heart of bok choy before her. My face changed drastically, and I immediately reprimanded the maid. She tugged my sleeve and whispered, "Don't frighten her." Only then did I temper my reaction, but inwardly, I was filled with apprehension. In her past life, she accidentally ate a mushroom, broke out in a rash all over her body, and had a persistent fever. I stayed by her bedside for 3 days and 3 nights. The imperial physician said she would have died if I had been even a moment later. During those 3 days, I couldn't eat or sleep, and half of my hair turned white. She didn't know about any of this. All she knew was that her husband detested mushrooms, and no one in the household dared to cross him. 9. Polo match. Pei Jingxing was also present on the day of the polo match. I knew he was also reborn. I could tell from the way he looked at her. There was guilt, unwillingness, and a hint of an unidentifiable affection in his eyes. I felt displeased. On the field, I put all my effort into winning against him. Match after match, if he stole the ball, I intercepted. If he shot, I blocked. In the final round, he had victory in his grasp and got carried away. I seized the opportunity to snatch the ball and, with a final kick, won the entire game. The emperor was overjoyed and asked what reward I desired. I knelt before the throne, my voice not loud, but each word clear. "I wish to beg your majesty to bestow marriage upon me and Miss Shen-san." As my words fell, the entire hall was stunned. I saw her standing among the female guests, her eyes widening in surprise at first. Then she lowered her head, the corners of her mouth curving into a smile. At that moment, I felt it was all worth it. Pei Jingxing also knelt down, saying he wanted to bestow a marriage upon her as a co-principal wife. I sneered inwardly. He wronged her for a lifetime in his previous life, and now in this life, he still wants to entangle himself. Dream on. The emperor was furious and had him thrown out. The empress took her hand and asked her who she fancied. She raised her eyes, looked at me through the crowd, her gaze as firm as iron. "This humble subject admires Lord Xie." Those 4 words were the most beautiful I had ever heard in my 2 lives. 10. Henceforth, in the 3rd year of our marriage, she became pregnant. I was overjoyed, like a child, and spent the entire day doting on her, wanting to shower her with all the good things in the world. She found me bothersome and kicked me out of the room. I would then sit outside the door, listening to her laughter with the maids inside. The night our child was born, I knelt outside the delivery room all night, praying to every god and Buddha in heaven mother and child are safe and sound. I was holding that wrinkled little thing, my hands trembling. She leaned against the pillow, pale of face, yet smiling with eyes crinkling. "Huai Jin," she said, "let's name the child." I looked out at the peach blossoms by the window, and suddenly thought of that withered peach branch. "Call her Xiemu Dao." She paused for a moment, then her eyes filled with tears. "Do you still remember that peach blossom?" "I remember," I said. "In this life and the next, I will remember." 11th Epilogue. Many years later, we were gray-haired, sitting side by side in the yard, basking in the sun. The peach blossoms bloom and wither, then bloom again. She leaned on my shoulder and suddenly asked, "Huai Jin, do you regret it?" "Regret what?" "Regret taking me so long." I held her hand and smiled. "No regrets. Next life, will you wait for me?" "I will wait," I said. "In the next life, and the life after that, I will wait." She smiled. A light smile, like the wind blowing through peach blossoms. That branch of peach blossoms made of silk, we have kept all along, tucked between the pages of a book, pressed at the bottom of a box, hidden in the heart. In this life, I have no regrets. The epilogue is over.